Welcome to Spin Justice with me, Hayley Owens, the podcast where I'll be talking about anything from health and fitness to the injustices of the world and everything in between. I've worked within the criminal justice system for over 20 years and have more recently taken to teaching indoor cycling, otherwise known as spin. Each week I'll be talking to a different guest about a topic that's personal to them, whether it be to raise awareness or just because. Most episodes will contain strong language because of who I am as a person, so if that's not for you, then probably best to swerve. Any opinions expressed by me are my own. Today's episode is sponsored by DNA Boxing School of Excellence. Big up to Danger and the team there for all the amazing things they're doing in the community, whether it be kids classes or one-to-one boxing training. So if you or anyone you know are interested in improving their fitness, because why wouldn't you, make sure you give them a shout. Today's episode is sponsored by Southpaw Building and Property Services. Shout out to Julian and the lads who are covering all types of building work, whether it's extensions, drives, landscaping and new builds, covering a 30-mile radius of Birmingham and local districts. Right, welcome Kim Pierre.
Thank you.
Right, I want to say, first of all, I want to let everyone know how we've been introduced.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, people contact me. Lots of people contact me. Some people want to tell the stories. Some people I'll speak to everybody.
Yeah.
But some people get my attention more than others, shall we say.
Yeah.
And you got my attention from the beginning.
Yeah.
And you actually emailed me, didn't you? So
I think so.
you did.
Yeah.
So at the end of the episode, there's an email address and you emailed me on there. You did follow it up with an Instagram saying, I've sent you an email.
Oh, right.
Because
so,
I hadn't looked on the laptop because I have all...
If you've got to get someone's attention, you've got to get someone's attention.
Yeah, yeah. And as soon as you sent me the Instagram message, I fired up the laptop, saw your email.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was last year.
Yeah.
So we're in February now, but it was off the back of Mitchell's episode, weren't it?
Yeah.
So I'll just quickly say, like, you were Mitchell's neighbour.
Yeah.
So you watched the episode
Yeah.
and then you thought, I've got my own story to tell. I'm going to reach out.
Yeah. And I like the way, the podcast went and
Yeah.
it was really relaxed and I just thought, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So we had a chat, didn't we, to
Yeah.
start with? And like I said, it was a few months ago and
Yeah.
you'd said, I really want to come on, I really want to tell my own story, but also, to help others. But I can't at the minute because I've just got back from Turkey.
Yeah.
So I just had my teeth done.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, brilliant. Yeah. So they're looking great, by the way.
they're only temps.
They're
But
only
it
temps.
sounds like I've got a list, but I haven't.
Yeah.
But so I don't normally talk like this, but, no pain, no gain.
Yeah. And do you know what else? Like, I really want to just say on that topic that it doesn't matter either. So see the message that we're trying to get across.
Yeah.
It don't matter what we look like.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we always want to look our best.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was thinking about it on the way in because I was thinking, I ain't had my nails done for ages and they look a mess. And they do look a mess. But I've been too busy.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
I thought, well, and my money's been taken up on other things.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not ashamed to say that, I just haven't had the money all the time to get them done.
Yeah.
So they ain't done.
Yeah.
But am I going to say, I can't do a podcast this week because I ain't got my nails done?
And I could have put this off because I did say to you, didn't I? Maybe wait till I've got my permanent teeth in because, like, I've got a slight lisp and I do feel a bit paranoid about them. But then if we keep waiting till this, nothing happens.
Exactly.
And so, I think the subject we're covering is more important than teeth or nails.
Hang on. Come on. I know. Sit down. Good girl.
She's our goddaughter.
Yeah.
It's been justice goddaughter.
Yeah. Yeah, the topic that we're covering.
Yeah. It's there's way more important things than nails and teeth and lisps.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that, I've put my glasses on today. I don't think I've worn my glasses much on the episodes. First of all, I've got my hair up because I had my extensions done yesterday. It had been 9 weeks. They were literally growing out of my head. And the reason I have extensions, by the way, is because my hair's really thin after having the kids.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really thin. And it was really getting me down a few years ago. So I've had extensions in for years, but my lovely hairdresser Louise comes to my house every 8 weeks normally and does them for me. But it had gone slightly over and they were really bad. So she come yesterday. But I can't wash it for 48 hours once I've had them in.
Yeah.
So I couldn't wash it this morning after spin. So I've had to whack it up.
Yeah.
And then my bag's under my eyes because I'm so tired. I thought I've got to hide them with my glasses.
At least they're bags from being busy, though.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know.
It is from being busy. And do you know what? So many people are saying to me, you're going to burn out, you're going to burn out. I know you've said to me recently and like lots of friends of mine, will you just take 10 minutes? And I'm like, I'd love to. And any time I get an opportunity to rest, believe me,
You do.
I do. But I've got a lot to do and no one else is going to do it for me. So I kind of feel like I'm constantly on the go. So I am knackered. But anyway, back to you reaching out and you said, you know, can we delay it for a couple of months just so I can get used to my teeth and that? Absolutely fine. And in that time, we've had a few chats, haven't we?
Yeah,
and whether
yeah.
it be voice notes, FaceTimes, interacting on social media and stuff. So I feel like today's the first time we've met, but I feel like we actually know each other.
Yeah.
And so comfortable with each other. Like, we've come in, we've got the kettle on, we've had a chat for an hour before we've even pressed record. Carl's heard it all.
Yeah, you are.
So, yeah, on that then, I want to just give a trigger warning
Yeah.
about the content, about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about abusive relationships, domestic violence, coercive control. It's very, very important to both of us, more so from an experience perspective for you, and more so from I don't know what perspective it is that I'm coming from, but I've spoke to you about it before we started recording.
Well, the injustice of it.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it's and how passionate. Do you know what? I'm passionate about a lot of stuff, but I didn't sleep last night because I was mulling over this episode in my head because I want it to be. I don't ever want anything to be perfect. Nothing is.
No.
But I don't want to miss anything out on this because I feel so passionate about the message that we want to get across. And if this helps one person out of an abusive relationship, I'd feel like I could retire.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Or even for them to feel they're not alone. You know, because that's a big emotion, like that you feel like you're the only person in the world and, you know, you're not. If they feel like that and it helps them in some way to recognise that and maybe how to change that.
Yeah.
That's the...
But what I really don't want is for someone to listen to your story, know that they're in a bad position. Hang on, come on, do you want to get up? Know that they're in a bad position, but think to themselves, oh, well, it's not as bad as Kim's story, so it's all right.
Yeah, and the thing is that any abuse on any level,
He's not
regardless of who is doing that, is not okay.
Yeah.
And everybody's story is going to be different. No one's the same. And every relationship is different and unique. And, you know, somebody doesn't have to put their hands on you to be abusing you. And, you know, I don't want at all. My story is an extreme because my ex-partner was a very ill man, right? He was mentally ill. But regardless of that, a lot of the trauma was more from the verbal abuse and the threat of what could happen.
Yeah.
More than the physical.
Yeah.
And you hear women say that a lot, and it's true.
Yeah.
Because if someone hits you or hurts you, but it's the constant threat of what's he going to do next? What's going to happen next? And unfortunately, because as humans, it's amazing what we can get used to. The more the woman doesn't seem to react anymore, they've got to up the ante.
Yeah.
And that's then when to be able to control her, the only thing he can do then is make the threats of violence. Then she'll get used to that and think, well, he hasn't, and then he'll have to, because he's got to keep that control. Right? So there is no, you know, even if you're sitting listening to this thinking, oh, he's not very nice to me sometimes, that makes me feel uncomfortable, it makes me question things, then start listening.
Yeah.
because it's not where it is, it's where it can go.
Yeah. And like you said,
And
you'll get used to that level of
Yeah.
behaviour, so he'll up the ante.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah. So,
Yeah.
right, before we go into it then, so obviously we've given the trigger warning
Yeah.
and it is going to be a very hard-hitting topic.
yeah,
But it's got to be.
yeah.
So we're not going to hold back. But just tell me a little bit briefly about your background, where you grew up, because that's going to lead into
Yeah.
the story, isn't it?
So I grew up in Five Ways, which is not very
Yeah.
far from here, with my mum, my dad, my sister and my brother. Mum and dad split up. We were quite young. And I think that made me quite a sensitive child. There was no violence, but it was a lot of atmosphere. There was a lot of atmospheres. And it took quite a while, I'd say probably a year and a half to 2 years for him to actually leave.
Right.
So that's a long time of atmospheres and not knowing, picking up on that. So I was quite sensitive. And then obviously as a teenager, grew up, stayed in the same area. And then my mom got married again, but quite quickly and moved away, moved over to sort of the Black Country. That's where she comes from. And I just didn't like him. So I just moved in with my mates and their mom. So here I was, like 16, left school, nothing really going for me, because I didn't like this man. I found myself in quite a vulnerable position, really, for a 16-year-old. But my friend's mum looked after us, but we just did what we wanted, basically.
Yeah.
And that's when I met my ex.
Yeah. And we're going to refer to him as him, aren't we?
Yeah.
So you're 16?
I was 16 when I met him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then by this time, me and my friends were living at my sister's house, so we just seeing him and whatever. And then one morning he got arrested. And I was devastated, 16. I thought he was the love of my life, as we all do at 16. And then I found out I was pregnant. So here I am, nowhere to really live as such. He's now in prison and I'm pregnant. And I think looking back now, he thought, oh, well, that'll make her stay with me. So moved me in with his mom.
Right.
So at least that was stable for my pregnancy, visited him throughout his time on remand. I won't go into the details, but subsequently he was out of prison within, by the time my son was around 6 months.
Right.
So we moved into a flat out the way of everybody, really. And I just thought, what have I done? What have I done? So it was just the control, really.
And when did that start? Because presumably at the beginning of every relationship, it's great, isn't it?
Well, the truth is, really, if I didn't really know him, did I?
Yeah.
If we're honest.
Yeah.
And when you have a child, it doesn't matter how old you are, it changes you. You look at life. I'm looking at life. I've got this child, and I've got. I'm just controlled. Like, he just went out, did what he wanted to do, and I'm just there with this child, and I just thought, oh God, what have I done? What have I done? And it was more verbal, really, with him initially. And like I said to you earlier, the violence came because eventually that's what he had to do. He had to up his ante to keep his control over me.
Yeah.
And the only way to keep that control was through the fear of violence. Then if we fast forward to, there was periods where he was okay, especially when certain friends were around that he didn't want them to sort of pick up on. They knew, you know, but he'd behave at certain times. And I have to add that, and this is to be fair to him, really, but it was due to the life he lived. he had a head injury whereby he was attacked with a hammer. I mean, it was serious. The people that were with him, they hit him with a hammer on the head, and he fell to the floor. But it was more the fall to the floor where they thought he's dead, he's dead, and he didn't die. But I think knowing what I know now, so I'm educated in mental health. He had some sort of brain damage, and from there, he really changed. I mean, he had no empathy for anything unless it was important to him.
Right.
He was a lot more aggressive, a lot more angry. Knowing what I know now, I didn't even think of it at the time, but knowing what I know now, he had some brain damage. So the damage to the side where it really affects their empathy on anything. It was all about him. I think he already had that in him, obviously, but
it was magnified through the injury.
Yeah, massive. And he was scary. He was really scary. He didn't live on the right side of the law. So, like I said, everybody's situation is different. He wasn't frightened of the law. If I said to him, I wouldn't dream of saying to him, do that and I'll call the police, because that's not what you did. That's not what you said. I never once, and there was lots and lots of incidents, I never once called the police to him because you just don't do that. You just don't do it.
Yeah.
By now my son is like 4 or 5, and I guess for me it wasn't about me anymore. I'm looking at this child who I adore. In fairness, you could say he adored him as well, but because of the way he was, there was part of him that wanted to do right, wanted to be right, but he just couldn't. He just couldn't put it into practice.
What was his relationship like with your son?
He adored him.
Yeah.
He absolutely adored that child.
Okay.
Adored him.
Good.
And I think what it was for him, he wanted this boy to have a life that he didn't have. He came from a broken background with violence and aggression. Dad was an alcoholic. Mum up and left him with Dad. So, although we're here today to talk about victims of this, because now of my education, my understanding of people is that if we look at his background, he was coming from a place of trauma, absolute trauma from a child. And it was like he didn't want that for my son, but he couldn't not be like this with me, And like I said, it was quite confusing because it wasn't always like it. But what started to scare me was my son knew how to behave around him as to not trigger him.
Yeah.
And I just thought, this is not right, This is not right. He's picking up. And he never, ever laid a hand on him. Never. I think he smacked his bum once. Yeah. And then spoilt him for the next week. And so that was confusing. Emotionally, that was confusing.
Yeah.
Because he would never have hurt him at all. But I'm now, in my 20s, and I'm looking at this child and I'm thinking, I don't want this for you. It wasn't about me anymore.
Yeah.
Right? This was about this child, and he's going to grow into a man, and he's either going to become the same, or he's going to look at me and, and blame me, why didn't you leave him? Why did you put up with that? Why did you allow me for us to put up with that?
Did your son witness any of the behaviour against you?
No, and this is another thing that why I needed to take my son away from this. He would run and hide, knowing what was going on.
Right.
And sometimes that's even more scary when you can hear something, but you don't actually know what, and that for me was just like shocking.
Yeah.
And like I said, but he knew how to behave in front of his dad. It's not like he would turn on his dad then or not be on that friendly terms with his dad because he knew that would make it worse. And I just thought, this is not right. Yeah. This is not right for this child. So I left The first time I left, well, I'd leave and go to my sister's or my, and he'd just think that was funny because, she's gone to her sister's. He knew where I was. What am I going to, what's going to happen, I think. But as my fear increased of him, really, I think his life was becoming darker in terms of his criminal life. And I got the brunt of that. I got the brunt of his fears, his insecurities, really. And that started to increase my fears of him. I didn't for 1 minute think that he didn't have it in him to kill someone. I didn't. My threat it was like he couldn't have bared to have seen me with another man. With my son. That's the part he couldn't. He couldn't.
And you hear that a lot, don't you? You hear like...
Yeah.
I mean, I know when I split up with my husband, and obviously I didn't go through any of this. I'll come on a little bit to something because I want to touch on something that we've talked about in the last few weeks. But I remember him saying to me, I can't bear to see another man around my kids. So I think that is obviously there for everybody, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. There was an element of my son, I guess, but it was as well because he didn't want to be with me and treat me right. And I think he probably couldn't cope with perhaps someone else might. But that's the last thing on your mind when you're going through this. You just want out.
Yeah.
I didn't love him. I couldn't stand his voice. But I learned to read people so well. He could get out the car. I could watch him from the window. And I could tell even by the way he drove the car round the corner.
Yeah.
How he walked. I knew what was coming.
You knew what mood he was in.
So, yeah, and I think I learnt to read him so well. I can read people like a book. It doesn't take me long to be around someone, feel their energy. I just can read people. And I would be right. I could either think, oh, he's fine, but I would know,
But could he switch easy? So although he might come in and be fine, something could trigger him and he'd flip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be something that's going on outside that, he gets a phone call and something's gone wrong or,
Yeah, and then you get the brunt of it.
And then I'd get the brunt of it. And there was a particular incident where it really scared me. I'd got a black eye. I just thought, I've got to get out of this. I cannot look at my son and carry on like this. So I left. I went to a refuge, and he found me. Within 6 weeks, he found me. No one knew where I was. How did he find me? And I just put that down to, I suppose I didn't even think, well, how did he find me? It's him. He sort of, I can do anything.
So
I will find you.
You knew he'd find you, did you?
I kind of just, when he found me, I kind of just thought, I didn't think, how did he find me?
Yeah.
And then I went back because he'd caused a scene outside the refuge and they were threatening to call the police. And the back of my mind was, oh God, it'll be worse because of his his criminality and stuff.
Yeah.
So you want to stop it all.
Soften
and
the blow.
So I'll just go back. Go back. I didn't want to go back, but I thought, well, if I'm here and he knows where I am, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah.
So I went back, but because of that, then the behaviour increased. So the threats increased. You leave me, take me to court, do any of that. You'll get acid in your face. No one else will ever look at you. And so you've got that fear, well, if I leave, he's going to find me.
Yeah.
And then he's going to do what he says he's going to do.
Yeah.
But then you tell yourself, well, but I can't live like this. It was like I was stuck in a prison of my own. I was stuck in a prison, really.
Yeah. Just pause there a sec and tell me, when you were in that refuge for those 6 weeks, how did you feel?
So I was scared, really, of like, what do I do now? Like,
uncertainty.
Where do I go from here?
Yeah.
I've always got to watch over my shoulder,
Yeah.
and at that point, it's just a relief not to be in the environment where the key turns in the door. So and it's kind of a breathing space.
So
I
you did
suppose.
feel like you had some breathing, because you had your son with you, obviously, didn't you?
Yeah. But then it's like, then you start thinking, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
You know, it was a bit overcrowded, that refuge, to be fair. So it was really noisy, and although we had our own room, and you just think, oh, what have I come to? Like, what? You know, I've had to take him away from his family and, you know, his friends and stuff. So it's easy then to kind of go, oh, you know. I think as the violence increased, there was an incident, and I rang Women's Aid, and I said, it just must have been what, I don't know whether it was what I said or how I said it. And she said, listen, it's either going to be you or it's going to be him. I think she'd realised it had got to that point, as scary as that sounds. And what I want you to do, I want you to do exactly what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I want you to tell me, I want you to go home, I want you to act as normal, and I want you to ring me tomorrow, and we're going to have a plan, okay? And I was like, and it was like I'd realised this is really dangerous now.
Yeah.
Because either I'm going to lose it, or
Yeah.
it's me or him.
And I feel like I can really understand. If anything, it's probably the most understandable crime in my head, how someone is abused for so long and then flips and kills them.
Yeah.
I get that. I feel like, and honestly, like, in my 20-year police career, I've seen it.
Yeah.
But obviously they're aware of this, aren't they? They're, you know, Women's Aid, they're sort of thinking, like you say, it's going to be you, it's going to be him.
Yeah. Oh, I met women after, when I got involved with Women's Aid, and we would support women in prison, write to them, go to the court hearings. But it must have been something I said, or it was in my voice. It was just like,
The fear.
she knew I was at this tipping point of, like, this, you know, and I said, well, he'll find me. Look, she said, you've got to get out. You've got to get out, and I want you to follow exactly what I say. You know, thank God for her, because she knew how serious it was. So I did exactly what she said. I ended up in Southampton, and after about 6-7 weeks, I had this feeling, he knows where I am. He knows where I am.
Just a feeling.
Just a feeling. Like I said, I just pick up things.
Yeah.
No one knew where I was. It was before mobile phones. The phone that we had in the refuge, you couldn't trace that at all.
Right.
I did everything that they told me to do. I wrote a letter to my family and everything. Someone else from the refuge would literally drive 2-3 hours to post letters. So there was no
trace.
No.
Of where it's come from and what sorting office it's gone through.
I did exactly what they told me. Was taking my son, starting my son at school, and this time I knew there was no going back.
Yeah.
I cannot carry on in that environment. Walking out to school, and he's walking towards me with my sister.
Oh my God, how did you feel?
So I just say no.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we go again. And my sister's there to kind of try and keep the peace, because he knows now I'm serious. I'm not joking with him.
Yeah.
I am not joking. So the other woman I was with, I said, you carry on. And I thought, right, I'm going to play the game here. Walked around Southampton. He's like, just come back. You know, I'll leave you alone. I'll take our son out. I won't have anything to do with you. I just want you back there. So he's with his family, and, you know, this is my fault. And I said, yeah, whatever. I said, yeah, that's fine. I said, look, I'll go in, I'll tell them what's happening. I'll pack my stuff and I'll meet you. They were staying at a B&B. They travelled through the night.
With your sister?
When my sister was there to try, and he'd sort of got to my sister saying, look, I realise this time, I know she means it, and I know that, you know, this is over now, but it's not fair that he's away from his family and friends. And so she was like the peacemaker between the two.
Right.
And he'd got her on side, and I thought, that's how
Manipulative he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'll be back in an hour. So I go.
Where's your son at this point?
With me.
Right.
I mean, I've played the game that well. They're convinced I'm coming back.
Yeah.
I've gone in the refuge. They've moved all of these women out through the back into another refuge.
Yeah.
I've gone over the fence to a completely different location.
Yeah.
And there's no one now in that refuge, and he's knocking the door. And the neighbour who used to keep us updated, he's going mad. Like, he's in the middle of the road, he's screaming, he's shouting.
Yeah.
And no one's answering the door because none of us are there.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about my sister because I'm thinking, is he going to flip now?
Yeah, but you can't think about that. You've got to think about your son. Yeah. Today's episode is sponsored by DNA Boxing School of Excellence, situated on Maryvale Road in Birmingham and delivering fitness for the whole family. Big up to Danger and the team there for the amazing work they're doing in the community. For more information, check out the description below for their contact details. This episode is sponsored by Southport Building and Property Services. Julian and the team have over 20 years of experience and offer an extensive range of building services. Check out the description below for all of their information.
So they called the police on him, and apparently he's crying on his knees. Someone once said to me once, you'll come a day where you'll have him on his knees. You'll have him on his knees. And I meant this now. I meant it. So I spoke to an MP. I was put on what's called, and this is for women in that situation, if you think there's no point in leaving, I've left so many times, he just finds me, through private detectives, that's how they find you. He'd pay whatever.
And he used private detectives to find you, didn't he?
Private detectives. I knew that by that point.
Yeah.
I was naive the first time, but because I was on benefits, so obviously you've got to be in the system.
There's a trace. Yeah. And these days it's a lot easier because there's phone usage, bank usage.
Yeah. We're talking like over 30 years ago, so things weren't as advanced as they are. But I was put on what I went to speak to an MP.
Yeah.
Because them at the refuge, they knew I hadn't left a trace, not a trace.
Yeah.
So how can somebody find you unless they're going down that? And this MP, and it sounds awful, I can see his face, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
And he said, there's a way, and it's costly, but because I could show that I'd I wasn't messing about, I didn't move to the refuge round the corner. I was going, miles away. I was put on what's called national sensitive.
So, on that, just quickly, when he said it's costly to the government, yeah. Okay.
It's usually used for MPs, so people don't know their addresses, high-profile witness protection.
Yeah, so I said to you before, when you first mentioned national sensitive to me, I said, I've worked in a police environment for 20 years. I've never heard of national sensitive. Witness protection, yes, dealt with witness protection.
The national sensitive bit is to do with the fact that your information is sensitive. So anybody trying to tap into your information, if it's found that they've give that information, they can get up to 10 years in prison. So people will not give, these private detectives, they've got connections. That information isn't given.
Yeah.
They will not give it.
Yeah.
So he couldn't find me then, right?
Yeah.
His private detective, he told me after, his private detective basically said, it's like she's gone from the face of the earth and there's no way of finding her.
Yeah.
I then took him to court.
Yeah. So was that, when was, before?
It was to get an injunction out on him.
Yeah, so when he's banging the door down at the refuge, was that the last time you seen him? Then, at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Went to
obviously
the
moved to
MP.
a different location. We spoke to somebody. Then I was put on this national sensitive. From that point of that address, he'll never be able to find me. And to be fair, I went back to that address because obviously he didn't think I'd
Go back there.
go back there. So sometimes it was like, and what he didn't realise, because of his criminal mind, I was always a step ahead of him then.
Yeah.
Right? And this weren't a game. This was how serious my life was.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to protect this boy.
Yeah.
I've got to protect this boy from him.
Yeah.
Because what he can't see is how he's going to impact him when he's a 30-year-old man standing in front of my face.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
even though he didn't hurt him, so it wasn't like protecting him from violence against himself.
Indirectly, he was hurting his mom.
Yes.
And
And
so-
that was going to mould
Yeah.
him as an adult,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah. And how is he going to, how does that help him to have respect for women when he just watches a woman bow down and be told that they're rubbish, but yet that's my mom. And my message to people with kids is they are going to grow up, and as much as that's difficult, how hard is that for any mom? You've got to take your child away, they can't see their family and friends, and if that's what you've got to do to protect them long term, right, that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
Because time changes things. During that period, I took him to court. That was around an injunction. Because obviously, if, say, for example, he did turn up or he thought, well, I'll just check that refuge again, and he did anything, I've got no injunction. So that was just to protect us. Took him to court. He didn't do anything. And I stood in that court and I was shaking. I was shaking. It was just, it wasn't in the days where, do you want to stand behind the
screen?
There was nothing. He was just there in the same corridor. And something changed. I just looked to him and I just thought,
You got nothing over me anymore.
yeah. I've took you to court. I've proved to you I'm not joking. I'll do what it takes now to protect my son and myself and my sanity. Because, you can't carry on like that in life, hoping that, I don't know, he'll get... I mean, I did. I used to think, well, maybe he'll get caught doing something and get a long sentence and that will be the way out, you know. You can't...
What if that doesn't happen?
Yeah, you can't just wait for that.
No.
The police, in all honesty, it was back in the day before they understood probably coercion and, that kind of situation, because you're as bad as him. You're with him. You've got a child for him, so therefore you're no better than him. They hadn't got a clue of, why I was there and I wouldn't ever speak out about anything I knew because that would incriminate other people. And at the end of the day, that's not how I was brought up.
No.
You didn't put people in.
Yeah.
For me, if he's going to get caught, he's going to get caught because that's how it's meant to happen. And I didn't want to be part of any of that. I didn't want anything to do with him. I just wanted out.
And like you said, even the days when you were living with him, you couldn't even stand his voice.
No, I couldn't.
So you knew you didn't want to be with him.
Couldn't stand the man's voice. And I know that's difficult when perhaps it's not at that extreme and a woman still loves this person. You didn't marry someone or have kids, and then they've changed and their behaviour's changed towards you. You don't just stop loving someone. I think because I was so young and maybe I didn't even love him anyway. I just thought I did because I was a kid. And as I grew up, it was just like...
This ain't what love is.
Yeah. So that's where it's probably a little bit different. But I can understand if, you've had some really great... I've met women, he was perfect for 5 years and then he just changed.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. It could be that he started drinking, he started gambling, maybe had an affair and his behaviour changed or something happened in his life. I met a woman, for 5 years, she had a perfect marriage.
Yeah.
Then there she was living in a refuge with her 3 children, petrified of him.
Yeah. And I just want to say at that point, because obviously you're referring to women, there's a lot of this going on in the reverse, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I don't want to ignore, because I have spoke to men.
Yeah.
since doing this podcast,
Yeah.
men have reached out to me
Yeah.
who are in abusive relationships
yeah.
or have
Yeah.
been in abusive relationships. But it takes a lot, and obviously we'll come on to why you talk about it more now and things. But it's very hard for people to talk about their story.
Yeah.
And I do think it's harder for men to talk about from a pride aspect, to say that they're being abused by a woman.
Yeah.
But it's happening.
I mean, there was the recent document.
Did you watch
there?
it? My Wife, My
Horrific.
Abuser. Fucking
Horrific.
hell.
And again, if you look at it from his perspective, you know, from outside looking in, they'd both got really good jobs.
The house was beautiful.
The house
It's
was
massive, lovely
amazing.
car, lovely area.
He didn't want his kids to be from a broken home, so he was prepared
I know.
to put up with that, so that his kids, you know, and so yeah, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
men as well,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think it's a different dynamic for a man in a lot of ways when it comes down to the kids, the emotional side of it. But I think for men, it's to keep their family together, and it can be for women as well. You know, I stay because I don't want the kids upset. I don't want to upset family. You know, people are together. You've got a connected family. There's a lot of dynamics
There's a
to
lot going
consider
on.
there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my message is, you know, regardless of all of that, if you're in a situation that is unhealthy and you know it's unhealthy and it's toxic, how's that going to progress? Because where did it start? Where are you now? And how can that progress? And do you deserve that? You know, do you deserve to wake up and think, you know, this isn't right, I'm not happy, but then the other brain switches in and says, yeah, but we've got a lovely home, the kids go to a lovely school, you know, the kids are happy. Are they really? Because your kids are watching you. You think you're watching your kids. They're observing you way more than you're observing them. And they know.
And they're picking up on
They
every
know.
little thing. Yeah.
You know, and if that does progress, where are you going to be in 5 years' time?
Yeah. We're going to come on to that and
Yeah.
kids. I just want to, because we've not talked specifically about incidents with you, and,
Yeah.
and you don't have to, but we've talked about you leaving and his behaviour to a degree, but there was some extreme violence,
Yeah.
wasn't there?
Yeah.
That you've suffered
Yeah.
at his hands. And so we're not just talking a bit of this and a bit of that. We're talking violence to the extreme. He was a very, very dangerous man,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm not going to allude to who he is, what his name was, but he, you know, the police even struggled with him. You know, his crimes were violent, and this wouldn't be like a slap. This would be knives to my throat.
Yeah.
Trying to drown me in water. It was like the violence that's really traumatic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, SA'd when he felt like it.
Yeah.
You know,
And just for anyone that's struggling to sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
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 Just when he felt like it.
When he
just
felt
'cause
like
he's got
it.
that power.
Yeah. A slap if I looked the wrong way. He was very careful with that though. When I think about it, I never walked around very often with bruises because it was more the other stuff he did.
Yeah.
It was like the humiliation of it. You know, I mean, she's a big dog, and I'd imagine you've got a big chain for her.
Yeah.
He whacked me with a dog chain once, and it was because it was a dog chain.
Yeah.
Also, obviously, what he's hitting me like my legs and my body,
Right.
but it was the humiliation of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you know,
as if like you're a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said to you, there was the incident at the sink with the knife. I don't know what started him because it wouldn't take much.
Yeah.
I might have just said, I don't like that programme.
Yeah.
You know, it was that like
Yeah.
flip of a button. Because I wouldn't be cheeky or, you know, in that way.
No,
to
you
him
wouldn't
because
dare.
You wouldn't dare.
Yeah.
And as I'm washing up in the sink, he got me by the hair and he's putting my head in the bowl of water.
Yeah.
And every time I come up, he's got a kitchen knife to my throat. And again, and this was then the incident when I rang the woman and she said, listen to me now, you know.
Yeah.
And something, I don't know what happened. And I just looked him in his face and I said to him, go on then.
Yeah, because you've had enough at this point. You're thinking, do you know what, mate? Just fucking do it.
I said to him, do it. Do what you want.
Yeah.
But I'm looking him right in the eye. And it freaked him out a little bit because I don't know what it was. I just looked up and I just thought, I'm not doing this. And if he's going to do it, before that any instant, I'd be shaking like a leaf. And I just wasn't. It was like something turned in me. And he put the knife down and he walked out. But then, because of the way he is, I'm thinking it's like to be continued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is he going to like mull that over and think, cheeky bitch,
Yeah.
you know, do what you want? I think that my kind of behaviour frightened him. It threw him.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, yeah, do what you want then. Just do it. Fine, just do it. It was like, and I think that was the conversation with the woman. I can't do this anymore. I cannot do it anymore.
Was your son in the house when this was happening?
Yeah. Wasn't in the room.
Weren't in the room.
But he would know, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there I am with soaking wet hair and, you know what I mean, I'm washing up.
Yeah.
But he just left and went, and that's how he'd leave you. That's how he'd leave me. If there was an incident, he'd go then.
Yeah.
And if it was a particularly bad one like that, I might not see him for 2 weeks.
Right.
But there's that threat. There's always that threat.
You're always looking over your shoulder,
you know.
and lighting, yeah.
And that's when I rang Women's Aid. And previous to that, I think a few days before that is where he was whacking me with the dog lead. There was one incident though where my son was there. My son did get upset and was like saying, "Leave my mummy alone, leave my mummy alone," you know. But that was only ever once that he saw that.
Yeah.
But the fact that he did see it and was doing that is
Once is enough.
yeah.
It should never happen.
Yeah. Is the fact that seeing it upset him enough to kind of turn a little bit on him. And then, you know, he stopped then. Because again, it's something out the norm. But so yeah, it was violence like that. And it was more the mental side of it of, you know, I'm a dangerous man.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I say these things, you know, I will kill you and your family. If you do so-and-so, I will kill all of you.
Yeah.
And you believe it.
Yeah.
Because he's capable of a lot of stuff.
And he is violent to you, so it only takes,
Yeah.
when he's got that kitchen knife to your throat, it only takes that one split second to do it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
And that could have been, I think, and that's what freaked this woman out at Women's Aid.
Yeah.
Because saying to him, do it then.
yeah,
It's
because
like
you flipped now.
You could be goading him, but actually you're going through.
What's to stop you grabbing that knife and doing it to him at that point? Because you've had enough.
Yeah. And this is where I think those kind of things happen. If they don't do something at that point, that could easily be the case, you know? And she picked up on that, whoever she was, God bless her, she picked up on that. And it was like, you've got to get out of this now.
Yeah.
And I think the longer that went on, in terms of like took him to court, and he would laugh about that. He would laugh and say, she's got an injunction out on me. Like, me, an injunction. What's an injunction going to do for me?
Yeah.
But actually, he never laid a hand on me again.
Right. So at this point then, is he...
So I was away for 6 months.
On the sensitive.
Yeah. And then I took him to court and I don't know what come over me. I just thought, I'm not doing this. Why should I leave my family? Why should I leave my friends? So I went back home.
Right.
Went back home.
But the government were fucking fuming, weren't they?
No, because it had served its purpose. That time I'd said to him, you're done with if you're gonna do something to me, if you want to kill me, kill me. But that's fine. But we're not playing this game anymore.
Yeah.
So I enrolled at college. I'd got a plan. I'd enrolled at college and I just got on with my life. And there was one incident where he said something to me.
So would you seen him again then?
Yeah. I mean, he'd see my son. And then, divine intervention, the police were after him.
Yeah.
So he couldn't come around anyway.
Yeah.
Which helped.
Yeah.
That went on for a couple of years. And then he was basically on the run from the police for 6 years.
Yeah.
So that was the gap.
That helped, didn't it?
That was a massive gap then. But I'd already got to the stage where You know, if he tries it, I said, do what you want, try anything, but I'll go again.
Yeah.
And I'll keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll keep doing that. Because I thought, after 6 months, if he can't see, I am not messing about. And then there was one incident where he was picking my son up to take him somewhere, and he said something. I'd been to enrol at college, and he went, some referring to, you think you're someone special now, something like that. And I said, yeah, well, whatever. And he went to, and I went, yeah, go on.
Yeah.
What, and he went, oh, I forgot, you've got your injunction, haven't you? Laughed.
That's
and walked
still abuse,
off.
though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and so I don't know how that might have waited a few months and then started up again. But divine intervention.
The police.
He was on the run.
Yeah.
And so that was, for me, he couldn't come anywhere. They were all over me, and he couldn't come anywhere near. Which
because
was
obviously
great.
they know he's going to go for his son.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So-
they would always come to me first.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, he's not here, and I've got an injunction out on him. They went, oh, right. Like, what
what's
was
that
that going
gonna
to
do?
do for him?
Do they even fucking work, injunctions? I'd like to know the stats behind this, if anyone knows.
I think for him, it was more, he had a bit of respect for me doing it. Because
Okay.
it's like, you threaten someone, you do that to me,
Yeah.
and see in court I'm going to throw acid in your face, and I still did it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he started to have a bit of respect because I started to stand up to him,
Yeah,
really. Because I just got past that. I'm not doing it anymore. And had he have started up to that degree again, I was quite happy to pack up and run. I'd got to the point where I'm not living this life, and no matter what I have to do to not have him around my son, I will do it.
Yeah, and he knew you weren't fucking about.
And he knew I weren't joking.
Yeah.
Right? So I think
So you've built up a strength here now, haven't you?
Yeah. And I think, like I said, he had a bit of whoa, because I'd bowed down to him for so long. I think you lose, they just think you're just so weak, and you're an easy target. And it was like he had zero respect. Now all of a sudden, I'm not having it, basically. So he was on the run then, and I just got on with my life. I went to college. Bear in mind, I was on paper, like I said to you, on paper, she's been in this situation. There's other things that went on as a child with different things. I was attacked as a teenager. She's a really vulnerable person. She had a child at 16, 17. No prospects, really, Don't hold much hope for her. To a professional in my own right, earning a good income. I have got a good career. Was able to look after my son, bring my son up. He never went without. I aspired to that, to being a professional in my own right, having that lifestyle. My main aim and objective of all of this wasn't about me. It was about him being a decent human being.
And it's about breaking the cycle, isn't it?
And I was a cycle breaker.
Yeah.
I had to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And that is tough.
Because quite often, we'll just quickly touch on that. Let's take abuse. If someone's abused, they are likely to go on to abuse and abuse and abuse, and there's the cycle. So it takes someone to break the cycle.
Yeah.
Now, that could be, I don't know, a substance misuser. So obviously you could be a drug addict.
Yeah.
And then that can go on to...
Yeah. And your kids see that.
Your kids see that and they think it's
and
normal, and then someone needs to break the cycle. And that's not always the case, but very often that's how it works. And I've had friends in the past who have broke the cycle, just like you. So that's what it's all about, isn't it? Breaking that cycle, making it so like now, obviously your son is... Oh, you've talked quite a lot to me about your son and your grandkids and how you've got a lovely family unit and a lovely life.
Yeah.
Because of you.
Yeah.
So, and that is because of you.
Yeah. I mean, people would say to me that knew the truth.
Yeah.
And I mean everything.
Yeah.
And would say to me, even my daughter-in-law's family would say, how, like, we wouldn't want anyone else for our daughter. How did you do that, Kim? Like, how?
Yeah.
And I say, I don't know, because you don't always know. And it was just like a strength that I took, that I am not letting this kid down. Like, this kid didn't ask to be born.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I'm not, I will die
Oh, yeah.
doing it.
Mate,
Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
will die doing it.
Because we would die for our kids,
And
wouldn't we?
if you know, he turns out wrong or whatever, I can honestly say I tried really hard to for that not to happen. And I'm so blessed with him. Like, he's my best mate.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he's my best mate. We will sit and have conversations about his dad. We both recognise his dad wasn't well. We both respect, I mean, you know, my son's got education understanding in, like, mental health as well. We both agree that. We both agree that, you know, I was young, I was naive, but ultimately, he's still his dad.
Yeah.
And if that guy did one thing on this, well, two things, because he's got two sons, did two great things, was those boys, because they're the complete opposite of him.
Yeah.
And actually, because I'm an observer of people, the nicer side of him, his more sort of gentle side, the side that I think he would have loved to have been and portray, you know, and be that person, they have that. And it's really weird because they're both a double of him as well. Which, again, you know, and people could be watching this thinking, God, how is she so... And I've had my traumas from it, but I've had a lot of therapy. I've paid a lot of money to be able to sit here. People might say, there's no emotion there.
Yeah.
There is, but I've transformed that emotion and it's my leverage.
Yeah.
It was my leverage then.
Yeah.
It's still my leverage now. Because no matter what goes on in life for me, I can tap back into that. If I can deal with that, there ain't much I can't deal with.
Yeah.
And the only thing that can really get to me is my son, my kid, my grandkids, and my sister's kids and whatever. Anything outside of that, I'll handle it. You know, and I'll do what I got to do for. And I've broke the cycle for them as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, my sister's kids have gone on to have careers and things like that because I've shown them a different way. You know, this is how you get things in life. This is how we can have what we want in life.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, maybe to a certain degree, I did spoil my son. I would go without. He had everything.
Yeah.
Everything he
we
wanted.
We all do that, don't we?
He got.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, what did you do for your 18th birthday, Michael? Oh, my mum paid me to go to Australia for 3 weeks. What did you do on your 21st? Oh, my mum took me and my girlfriend to New York and we sat in Central Park drinking champagne, flying around New York in a helicopter. Do you know what I mean? That, and I'm not on about material things. I'm on about if I can go from where I was
rock bottom.
I'm giving him, I'm going to show him a decent life from hard graft, determination, and a strong woman. You know, is that, and even if that had been on a beach in Spain, I'm not. It
it
doesn't
be on
matter.
a beach in Breen.
Do you know what I'm
doesn't matter,
saying?
does it?
It's
As
the
long as you're
memories,
safe.
the memories,
Yeah.
and that's how far I'd come.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did that myself.
Yeah.
You know.
So let me just quickly on him. So he got found by the police. Yeah, he was on the run for 6 years, and he got captured in the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that the end of that then for you?
Well, so basically, the police had contacted me because, and I can't really go into it. It's not my story to go into. He was in another relationship where, and again, I feel things and I know, and I knew on some level, I knew he's hurting someone. You know, I mean, in terms of his criminal life, that's a given. But I just had this feeling, and it was through a relationship that he got caught.
Right, okay.
Because obviously he is who he is. Yeah. And she'd, like, put him in, basically.
Okay, so he was abusing someone else now.
Yeah.
And she had enough.
Yeah. And she was that petrified, she actually went to the police.
Good.
So they'd been contacting me because they'd heard a few things. And I said, look, He doesn't come here. He will never come here.
Yeah.
He'd be too scared to come here now, because I'd have feared for him if he'd come to my door. I'm sorry, but I would, because I'd have freaked out with him. Because I've put so much into my life now with my son. You are not coming in here.
Yeah.
You are not coming
So at
around
what
me.
point did he stop seeing your son then? Because there was a stage where he was coming and
Because he was locked up, wasn't he? And then when he was on the run,
Yeah.
he couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So that distance.
So that distance, like my son didn't know him anymore. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? So yeah, they then contacted me and said, "We think we've got him. We think we've got him." And I said, "Right, okay." It turned out it was misidentification. They hadn't. I was like, okay. And then the next thing I knew, they'd actually caught him. It was on the radio, TV, whatever. And I just thought, you know, because I knew he was dangerous.
So he was wanted. So obviously this other woman had gone to the police about him, but he was wanted anyway, weren't
Yeah,
he?
yeah.
So he was a dangerous.
Yeah.
I think you'd referred to him as being one of the.
Most wanted in Birmingham.
Yeah.
At one point, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they rang the house, and my nephew answered the phone. He was in custody at this point now. And the police officer said, "I need to come and see you." And I knew.
Yeah.
And a female officer and this guy, a male officer. And as soon as they walked in, I said, he's dead, isn't he? And he said, yeah, he's hung himself.
In prison.
In prison.
Right.
So that, you know, that was
the end of that.
That was the end of him.
Yeah. And is that when you, like now, obviously you talking about it, is that why you talk about it now, because of that? Or do you think you would have always talked about it anyway?
I think what do you mean, if he hadn't have died?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have talked about it. But I think because he's not around, it's easier to talk about it. And, you know, obviously I don't mention names and I wouldn't bring other people into it. But it's to highlight that there is the extreme, but there's the everything in between. It didn't start out that way. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm not saying that every man is, you know, going to turn out, it's going to turn out that way. But
because this is an extreme case.
It is an extreme case.
But, and obviously we've met, so you can share your story, but that we're going to go into little subtopics now to help other people.
Yeah.
Because like we said, you want to help other people. I want to help other people. This is very, very, I've got a lot of passion about this. Like you say, it is an injustice. I ain't got a personal story to tell, but I'm aware of certain situations going on.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. And it fucking infuriates the life out of me. And it's actually something I'm probably the most passionate about. Yeah. Like I said, this is probably one of the, if not the most important topic to cover on this podcast for me.
And I think for me, I'm passionate about it because, I just, it hurts when I know someone's going through that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people want to say, oh, you know, she's not very emotional when she's talking about, you know, him hanging himself. Because I've transmuted that energy to my leverage. So I've used it to strengthen me and for me to progress. And so if good can come out of bad, that's a typical story of it, right? And, you know, when we talk about the time that I was with him, we're only talking sort of 7 years. Can you imagine if I stayed with him 30 years? And
I genuinely think you or him would have been dead.
Yeah. Or I would have ended up seriously ill, unable to even communicate, let alone look after a child.
And God knows how your son would have ended up.
Exactly. But I think for me, my intention is that, you know, like you said earlier, don't think, oh, you know, well, he's not quite as bad as that. You know, he's nowhere near that. It doesn't matter.
And this is perfect now because I want to get into, you said something to me the other day, because we were talking about how we can reach people that are in situations that they need to get out of. Yeah. And you said to me, you do not have to stay in a relationship you're not happy in. And it stayed in my mind because I ended my marriage because I weren't happy.
Yeah.
And I weren't being abused. He was a good man. He never once laid a finger on me. He always provided for his kids. I weren't happy. And I've mulled it over so much since. I mean, my very close friends, I've sat with them and said, now, I'm talking about now, if I'd have stayed, maybe like we'd have had a really good life now. And they say to me, you can't think like that. You weren't happy and we saw you at rock bottom. I remember I'd rather have not been here because I was so unhappy.
And had you stayed, let's flip that then. Had you stayed, you might not be who you are now.
I wouldn't, 100% wouldn't.
Because you'd been putting everybody else but yourself first.
Yeah.
Now that sounds really selfish, but if you don't put yourself first, I talk throughout this about my son. If I didn't get myself out of that, to get my head right, how can I look after him? So maybe it was me first, then him. You know, I knew that if I stayed in that, I mentally would have either had a breakdown, which I probably did have breakdowns at certain points where I was really low, or I would have killed him. Or he'd have killed me.
Yeah. So I got out of a relationship that was, to all intents and purposes, a good relationship.
But there was something there that you wasn't happy.
I wasn't happy, so I left. And
that's
me.
That's strong and it's brave because it would be easy to stay.
Yeah, it always is, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no where you're going, I've got to get out of this.
Yeah.
Because I've got to keep my kids safe.
Yeah.
He's going to hurt me. It would be so easy to stay in that.
Yeah.
And a lot of women
they do stay.
And
this is what I want to come on to, because let's talk about the reasons why people stay. Because there's people listening to this now and you're staying. And it will be for the kids and a family unit.
Money.
Finances is a fucking big one because you think I've got nothing. I've got nothing on my own. Or you feel like you've not got the strength.
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be. You're staying. And it's not for the right reasons.
No.
Okay, so...
Because you're putting everybody else and material before you.
Yeah. So let's say if it's a finance reason. So, okay, I'll be on my arse without this house, or where am I going to go? Who am I going to turn to? Right.
Yeah.
You've got to take that first step.
Yeah.
Haven't you?
Yeah.
And like you did, you left and you went back a few times.
Yeah.
There's going to be people out there that have probably thought about it or have done it and have gone back, but it needs to end, okay? Because if you're in a relationship that is unhealthy, toxic, and you know it's unhealthy and toxic, you've got to get out.
Yeah.
So let's start with like something like coercive control. You ain't got to be battered black and blue to be in an abusive relationship. You can be in a controlling relationship and he ain't laid a finger on you. It's still not right. It's still abuse. That's the bottom line. So,
and I think the biggest trauma comes from the verbal stuff because, you know, that sticks.
Yeah. Yes. And that venom in the words, you know, like, and right, I just want to say here, I've been in contempt relationships or a contempt relationship. My marriage was very contempt for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I got out of that relationship because I wasn't happy. And that's the bottom line. But I've also been in relationships where I've not been content and I've felt like I don't trust them. And I've displayed behaviours that might be displayed as jealousy or questioning because I don't feel content. Now, and what I mean by that is I've been in relationships that have brought the worst out in me.
Yeah.
And I can recognise that now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking to the extremes of what we've talked about so far, but I know that I might have been in a relationship and thought I don't trust them. And it's displayed not very nice behaviours from me. And I, at the time, probably could recognise it, but I didn't fully recognise it. Like now, I'm happy in my life. I'm happy for everybody around me. I'm content. But I've been on that side of the unhappy, jealous mind. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here and go, oh my God, it's like everything's got to be healthy and not toxic, because I've been in that position where I've not trusted someone and it's brought a horrible side out of me.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm not there now. But what I mean is, it can start. Let's just take a minor. You're going out with your mates of a weekend, and this is men or women, and it starts at the beginning of the week. So you're going out Saturday with your pals, and the moodiness starts on a Monday or beginning of the week, because they know the night out's coming.
Yeah.
So the snippets and the snidey comments will start dripping in at the beginning of the week, because they want to cause a row and they don't want you to go out.
Yeah.
Because they're insecure.
Yeah.
That's abuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? So that's, I would say that's relatively minor on the grand scheme of things.
It's your lower level.
It's your low level.
Yeah.
That is abuse.
Yeah.
That's unhealthy
Yeah.
and toxic behaviour.
Yeah.
So even if it's that you leave for, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because you're not happy. And we are only here once. And we have got a right to be happy and live a happy and content and peaceful life.
We are. Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship like that and you think, I don't want to be in this, it is your right to get out of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving on from that, children watching behaviours. So if your son, obviously, he might not have witnessed it, or he might have witnessed it once, he's still, in my mind, even if you're listening to it, you're witnessing it, because...
And it's not even about when it's going on. It's the after effect, my mood, you know, how that's affected me.
Yeah.
Of course I'm not going to just bounce back from that and, you know, he's going to pick up on my sadness.
Yeah. And you might be impatient with him because you're feeling in such a bad place. You might snap at him. Yeah. And he knows then he's got to read your mood.
But I think that was the saddest part. He just put his arms around me.
Yeah.
And it was as much to say, Mama, no. You know. And that I suppose give me the strength, really.
Yeah. And it's the kids witnessing this behaviour.
Yeah.
You know, like them picking up on the moods, or God forbid they're witnessing violence.
Yeah.
That's not right.
No.
It's not fucking right.
No.
Do you know what I mean? But then there's the other bits, right? And we've talked a bit about it before, but like sex. If not just necessarily the men, women or men, they're saying, they're demanding it. And like you said, you couldn't even fucking stand his voice. No. Let alone fucking sleep with him. So you're then having to put on a front to keep him happy. Yeah. When that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. And if it's getting like that, again, you're starting down this road of, so you're now not going out potentially just to shut them up.
Yeah.
You'll start making excuses to your friends because you know what, it's just easier.
Yeah.
So you've got no social life outside of it. Now you're doing things like having sex just to keep them happy.
Keep the peace.
Keep the peace. So what's it going to be next?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And things will be said like, well, if you're not giving it to me, who are you giving it to? If I'm not getting it from you, who's getting it? Yeah. And then it's like a constant, it's control. Yeah. It's coercive control.
Yeah.
And
it starts very, very subtle.
Yeah.
You know, I remember once, this is just an example, and I met somebody in the refuge, one of the workers, and she got married to him, and she said, at first I thought, oh, isn't he lovely? I would move something, and there'd be like wrapped chocolates. Now, at first, she thought it was romantic.
Yeah.
What he was doing, I mean, she left him subsequently some years later. He was checking whether she was doing the cleaning properly.
Right.
So if she found the chocolate, she was moving that unit to clean. Why else would you move that unit?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's how subtle that started.
Yeah, yeah.
Making it out into something of, found them chocolates behind there. See, I love you.
Yeah.
And it, you know, obviously it become that he was a a narcissist. Do you know what I mean? It was a control thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But the concern is down the line. Now you've stopped going out with your friends now because it's easier. You're having sex when you don't want to.
Yeah.
So where's the emotion in that? You're just thinking,
Just get it over with.
Then it will be they don't want you to have friends at all. Because you start talking to your friends about things.
And then when you do talk to your friends about it, your friends get fed up with it because if you've got a strong friend, they'll be like, mate, the fuck you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you need to, who the fuck do they think they are? Or whether it's he or she. Who the fuck, mate? Like, nah. And then you'll stop telling your friend because you don't want to hear that. Yeah. Because it's frustrating your friend now. Yeah. So you'll stop confiding.
Because these things are happening, but it doesn't change the fact that there's emotions in this relationship. So someone saying to you, don't put up with that. Well, yeah, you know that's not right, but you still love that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sorry, but you've got to recognise the red flags.
Yeah. And there's other little bits that we can talk about, but it's not always the case. Like we talked earlier about addictions. So, drink and drugs.
Yeah.
Gambling.
Yeah.
Things like this is where they might change their behaviours and then the partner might get the brunt of it, like you said.
Yeah.
So if they're pissed, they might be a nasty drunk.
Yeah.
Or, coming down off the drugs or needing to get hold of the drugs and then they're...
Or losing money.
Yeah, or gambling and losing money. And then that puts them in a bad mood and then they take the fucking anger out on you.
Yeah.
Like but then that's not always the case, is it? It could be that there's no substance misuse and there's no addictions going on.
But I think if there are, you can understand, right, so he's only like that when he's had a drink. He's only like that when he's lost some money. That's something that could be worked on if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But it's still not right.
But it's still not right.
No.
Right, and that's it's recognising that it's not right.
But it's also enough for you to leave.
Yeah.
So you haven't got to wait for them to fix up.
No.
Nah.
It's not your job to fix someone.
No.
It's your job to recognise that you're not happy with that.
Exactly. So just because you think, oh, well, it's because he's a drinker or it's because of the drugs or because of the gambling, stop making excuses for him.
Yeah.
And it's not your job to fix them. If they can't fix themselves...
And actually, by staying, you're feeding it.
Yeah.
You're allowing it.
Yeah, you are. You're saying, this is fine, and I'm going to allow you to treat me like that.
Whereas if you go and then they make those changes and realise, if I don't make these changes and they do, sort themselves out, then fair enough.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it does take that.
Yeah.
But if they don't, that's going to remain as it is.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to still be in that and it's going to get worse depending whether if it's gambling, you could lose your home. You could, if it's drugs, again, you're losing money. He'll lose his job, blah, blah, You're going to be in that.
Yeah.
If it don't change, you staying is not going to make it change.
And if you've got kids, then how's that going to... You've got to break the cycle because then they're going to feed into that.
Yeah.
And they're witnessing all of this.
Yeah.
So...
But I think you've got to be, I am leaving because I am not happy with that. I am not happy to live like that. That person then, the onus is on them to change. And if they don't, that's their choice.
Exactly. It's not our job.
Yeah.
It's not, if you're in a relationship and you're listening to this and you're thinking, that's me.
Yeah.
Some of this is me.
Yeah.
Don't say, oh, but it's not as bad as Kim's story. Yeah. Or it's not, but he's not taking drugs or pissing all our money up the wall or gambling. No. Yeah. If it's as little as he goes in a mood when you go out.
Yeah. Because you look nice and someone's complimented you or looked over at you.
Yeah.
Like that's the start of
that's
something
enough.
That's not healthy.
Yeah, it's enough. And that might just be that. Like forever.
Yeah.
But that's still control. Yeah. And you still don't have to put up with that.
Yeah.
So honestly, I've said to you before, like I feel that strongly about it. Like, so how can we help them then? Where are we signposting people to go? So obviously we've talked about Women's Aid.
Yeah. I think first of all, if they're recognising that something's not healthy, it doesn't matter what it is. If they're not happy with something in that relationship, even a small thing like, he doesn't like me to go out, because they'll put it across as protection or blah, 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 blah. If it's something that you keep questioning in your mind, really think about that.
Yeah.
And think about how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
And how this could look in 5 years' time.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And I know it's easy to say, just leave, because there's a lot of dynamics. But ultimately, if you don't do something about it to change that, that's going to stay as it is or get worse.
Yeah.
My question is, what do you want for yourself?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to feel that you're compromised by, even the littlest of things?
Yeah.
If you go like that when it happens, and then you think about it after, that's not right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not saying it's going to lead to the extremity, of violence to that level. But what I am saying is, straight away, you're compromising.
Yeah.
You're compromising. And we all compromise to a certain degree. But when it's something that makes you feel uncomfortable about that relationship, or you make excuses for it, that's not right.
Yeah. And let's face it, not all relationships are perfect.
No.
And there are things that we all do that our partners have to accept or not accept. And it is well within our rights to accept or not accept it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I was with someone and there was a trait of theirs that I didn't like, I don't have to put up with that.
No.
I could say, listen, not for me. I'm not happy. I'm leaving. I've done it.
Yeah.
And believe me, fuck it, I had fuck all. Like, I've said to you, I was sat in the housing office with a double pushchair without a pot to piss in. Now, he was a good man, but I still went to rock bottom to come back up because I weren't happy.
Yeah.
Now, that's my story's minor. There's nothing really to talk about. But there are. What I'm saying is, you can get out of it without a reason.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be with somebody, you do not have to be with that person. So let's just quickly talk about, but they won't leave.
Yeah.
Okay. You leave then.
Yeah.
You don't want to be with them, you fucking leave.
I think in any situation, right, we can all find an excuse of, well, I've got nowhere to go and I've got no money and I've got no... You know what? If it's that bad, or if you want to make that change, you will do what it takes to make that change.
And I don't care whether you've got 10 kids and the other party won't leave. Well, you leave then with the fucking 10 kids.
Yeah.
Because there are people that will help you.
Yeah.
There are charities. And you said earlier, we can talk about Women's Aid and we can talk about the Samaritans.
Yeah.
And other charities.
So your Citizens Advice, because they're really good at pointing you in the right direction for your circumstances. Because it might not be that you leave, it might be, everybody's different. It might be with an injunction against him. Let's say it's some violence.
Yeah.
He will leave and it will work for him. And so there's different organisations for, what your situation is. And sometimes a good starting point is Citizens Advice, because they will know all of the charities or the services that can deal with your personal circumstances.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, but you've got Women's Aid. There's a lot of charities out there that help women with, relationship issues. Not always about violence, but I think Citizens Advice is a good starting point, because they will point you in which direction you need. I think if it's downright violence, I've got to get out, I've got to keep my kids safe, Women's Aid is the way to go. I mean, you can call the police. They will again point you in. They will refer you.
I was just thinking about the police then, because a lot of this coercive control is a fucking criminal offence.
Yeah.
And I don't think people get that actually you could go to the police and say, but you might feel like it's daft. You might feel like, but it's just this or it's just that. But even if you went there and they didn't do anything, at least you might get signposted in the right direction and protected, whether that be, okay, we've got a refuge. And listen, refuges aren't nice places, are they? it's not your ideal situation to be in.
It's not home, is it?
No.
And you're only going to be in one room with your kids, basically.
But think of the bigger picture.
But you've got to look at the future.
Yeah.
And if you don't get out of that situation that's making you really unhappy, in turn, it's going to make your kids unhappy. What's that going to look like in 5-10 years' time? You can, if we fast forwarded me 5-10 years' time, I was a professional in my own right, my own home, my son, like, flying, met the love of his life as a teenager, married that girl, the best husband, son, and dad.
Yeah.
If I hadn't have been prepared to live in that one room and run and do what I needed to do, what would that have looked like?
And it's
instead?
Typical short-term pain for long-term gain.
I always use this analogy because someone said this to me once, and it's absolutely right. We're on a tightrope, right? And we're in the middle, and I'm shit scared of heights. I know you are because you said it on a podcast. We're in the middle. Now, we've got 3 ways to go. We can stay where we are, but we're petrified because we're in the middle. We can go back, but that's scary because we're going back to where we're trying to get away from, or we can go forward. Now, either of those three ways are scary because we've got to walk this tightrope. One way or the other, we've got to walk it. If we go back, we've still got to walk this tightrope, haven't we?
Yeah.
If we go ahead, we've still got to walk this tightrope, and we don't really know how that's going to look. All we know is it's better than the middle, and it's better than where we were.
Yeah.
Because that's why we've walked on it, to get away from where we are. So where are you on the tightrope? What do you want to do?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to stay where you are?
Yeah.
For it to get worse, as in, your fear's not going to go away because you're still on this tightrope.
Yeah.
Are you going to go forward because you've got to move anyway?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to go back?
Yeah, yeah.
Which one are you going to do? Because that's the reality, isn't it? That's the truth. It's your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your life, your future, your children. I'm not saying they're not your partner's children as well. But ultimately, if we're talking about violence and coercion and gaslighting and, that kind of behaviour, it is going to affect you, your children.
Yeah.
If it's affecting you, it's going to affect your children. You are either going to end up with grown men that become abusers and have all sorts of issues going on because they've watched their mom be abused, beaten up, and that's going to affect a lad on some level.
Or women. Because
or
the women can be the
abuser,
or the women can be the abusers.
Yeah.
Or if you've got a daughter that's witnessing her mum being treated
normal.
like this, or a man, or a lad, they think that's how a relationship should be.
Yeah.
And that's not right.
Yeah.
So
at the end of the day, how do you want that to look?
Yeah.
Because these children are not going to stay children, are they?
No.
They are going to grow up into adults. And if you feel on whatever level it's not right, then you've got to... And I know it's like, listen, I know it's not easy. I had one child and it was hard, like financially. I was lucky when he was younger, it's a bit easier. Then as they start to grow up, they want things. I know it's not easy. It's not easy to leave a nice home, your comfortable home. But you know what? You make do with what you've got because it's better than what could come if you stay in that for the future.
Yeah, yeah.
Those kids won't remember what trainers they had on their feet. You know what? People don't remember things. They remember how they felt.
Yeah.
And children definitely... If I said to my son, what did I buy for you Christmas stone? Oh, I don't know.
Of course you don't.
But we had a laugh. Remember, we did that because he'll remember the memories, not the things.
So it doesn't matter. None of that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm on that wavelength anyway.
Yeah.
Like I've said this on previous episodes.
I went without, so he didn't have to.
Yeah. And I'll go. I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
I'll go with that all the time for my kids. I've said it on episodes before. I shop on Vinted and charity shops.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I'll treat myself on ASOS or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't give a shit about it anyway.
No.
I couldn't give a toss.
No.
like I've said this week, I ain't had my nails done. I ain't had my nails done because my money's gone on other stuff.
Yeah, but it's about those kids will remember how you felt, how they felt.
Yeah.
You know, if all they remembered was you being tense, you then becoming ill, mentally ill, you then becoming so broken that you can't be a mom. You know,
Yeah.
they're going to take that into their adult life with them, and they'll either become somebody that's abused because they'll go introverted, they'll go inside themselves, or they'll be the opposite and they'll be the abusers.
Yeah. Break the cycle.
It is. It is about breaking a cycle. And when you're a cycle breaker, that's not easy.
No, but it's very powerful.
Yeah.
But I don't want to over-egg the pudding. I think we've covered it. And I want people to have listened to this and gone, I'm not happy and it is within my right to leave and be happy.
Yeah.
And listen, anyone can drop me a message. Anyone can drop you a message. I'll tag you in all the socials anyway.
Yeah.
And if that is the first step and we have to say, right, I'm going to signpost you to X, Y and Z, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I ain't bothered. I'll literally, I feel that passionate about it.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I think we've covered it to that degree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a spin justice, isn't it? But have you got one? You got a spin justice of the week?
Yeah. So I bought a car. I won't mention names, but I bought a car and it had problems.
Yeah.
Right. And they have really, it's been a nightmare with it. Anyway, it's been sorted out now. So that's going to be my shout out to who he is.
Ah.
Right. But it is being sorted. But it was
Are
annoying.
we talking a dealership or a person?
Yeah,
right, a dealership.
And I shouldn't have had these problems.
No.
So, you know, but there was a lot of toing and froing. They tried to get away with sorting it out. I'm like, no, you will deal with it.
Yeah, it's your problem.
And they tried to mess me about a little bit. I won't go into detail because I don't want. They've agreed to deal with it.
Okay.
Maybe because I'm a little bit assertive when it comes to stuff like that. But a shout out. Do you want that?
Yeah, go on, do
That's
it
to the mechanic that I basically, someone referred me to him. He's a mechanic that he came out within like half an hour, took the wheels off, showed me what the problem was. This is what you need to do. But also, and he was really professional, made me feel comfortable straight away.
Yeah.
But the good thing is he's got a fleet of cars. So if he's got to take your car away, the car I'm in at the minute is one of his cars. He's dealing with my car. The garage are paying him to do that. And I'm fine because I've still got a car. But he's been really helpful all the way through it.
Yeah, good.
So,
Love that.
So a bit of injustice, but then, you know,
A remedy.
and it's MJ, so Mark Jones and his Brown Hills.
Okay.
He will travel.
Yeah.
He will travel. But yeah, you know, I can't fault him.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah.
My spin justice is slightly different, but I've sort of touched upon it throughout, right? So my head's moving at the minute, see my lines. Now, I ain't afraid to say I have a bit of Botox. I like to have a bit of stuff done here and there. I like to have my extensions, have my colour done every 4 weeks, got bad grey hair. Have my nails done. I'm not against whatever makes you feel good, and whether that be surgery. You got no plant, Carl?
Your teeth.
Your teeth, yeah. You got no plant? No, because Gina knocked the chair back. I feel like I'm like this.
You are.
You know that Bart Simpson meme when he comes out of the book?
She'll be hugging the tree now.
Yeah, it's me. So mine is, I messaged Skinfinity by Sophie, who's done an episode with me, a skincare episode. She does me Botox. And I messaged her this morning. I says, Bab, my head's moving and I don't like it. But for a multitude of reasons, not having time or money, I've had to leave it for a bit. So mine is the maintenance of feeling and looking good because
it's costly.
It's costly and it comes to us all. And, you know, some people, my mum will go, oh, just grow old gracefully. Hell to the fucking no. No, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm 40 this year and I don't feel 40. I feel 18 in my head. But, I mean, my body is another matter, but, I feel a bit fucking tired every now and then. But all this maintenance is time consuming and costly. And this week I felt it. I felt it, and I thought some people might think it's especially compared to what we've just spoke about, it might be a very extreme injustice.
Listen, people, if you feel good, you feel good, and whatever that is to you, whether it's having your hair extensions, your nails, or having none of that, and you're into trainers or you're into clothes, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
We deserve that.
Yeah. I work
We deserve
fucking
it.
hard.
Yeah.
Literally, from when I get up to when I get to bed. I work hard if I want to have my nails done, or if I want to have my extensions done. I fucking deserve that.
But it's about feeling good for you.
And I do.
Not for anyone else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mate, I don't bother. This is all for me
Yeah.
and how I feel.
Yeah.
I train every day because and let's take away this, feeling tight in your clothes and all of that. It's for my head.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I don't train, and there has been periods, not for years, because I've trained consistently for years, but if I don't train, sometimes you drop off it for a week, that turns into 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Before you know it, I'm fucking depressed, mate.
I need to get on it, but I know what you mean. I know I've been like that.
Yeah. And that's my thing. It's what sorts me out. But I just feel like this week, my maintenance has pissed me off.
I think where it helps for me, because I walk the dogs, and I think I get something out of that, because I love just walking. I put my audio book on or something inspirational.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit of exercise. They are, but I need to up it.
Yeah.
So I've bought myself a weighted vest.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking, kill 2 birds.
Nice. Yeah.
But I do need to up it.
Yeah. Well, whatever yourself, don't you? You know how far you can push and that. So my shout out is, first of all, to you for doing what you've done, because I tell you what, and I don't know if you picked up on it, but there's times when throughout this episode I've felt myself welling up, and I have not had this on any episode. I mean, I've had people sit there and tell me stories or talk about traumatic incidents, and I'm quite a hardened person. I very, very rarely get upset, but there's been times throughout this where I've thought, fuck, I feel like I'm going to cry in a minute. Do you know what I mean? So to you, but also to anybody that listens to this and thinks enough is enough, because drop me a message. I will help you, man.
Yeah, and me.
And I've not been in your position, but I feel so strongly
Yeah.
about it. Has she upset anything behind me, Carl?
No.
Yeah, yes, she has, but it's like...
She's moved the curtain. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's mine. That's my shout out. But I think we've covered it all.
Yeah,
And
I've created, as I told you, I've created a Facebook group which doesn't really allude to DV, because some people might not be able to go on to something that looks anything to do with DV, domestic violence. And I've sent you the link. So if anybody wants to join that, where I will, again, if they've got any questions, they don't have to even go into the group. They can just private message me.
Yeah.
If they want to go in the group, great. And if I can help them, signpost them, advise them.
Yeah. So I joined that group yesterday. So it's a closed Facebook group.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to ask on that. When I clicked on it, it just shows that there's like 1 member.
Yeah.
Is that purposely so that... Because I know now, having joined it, that there's other people in the group.
Yeah,
so I don't want people to think people are going to know I've joined this group.
Yeah, I think that's how it looks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's more than that.
Yeah. So
I've only just started it because I thought on the back of this, people might want somewhere to go.
Yeah. So they can join that group, and I'm in it.
Yeah.
And I'll be willing. And you might just want to sit and observe what goes on in the group, or you might just feel like being in that group is your level of support, or whatever. So if they want to join that group, they can message either of us, and we'll point them in the right direction. And then hopefully from there, signpost people.
Yeah. And if they just want to be part of the group because they're thinking about what their situation is and they want to learn from that.
Yeah.
Or they're in that situation and they know they've got to do something about it and they just need someone to talk to. Or, like I said, they don't have to do anything in the group. They can just be part of the group. But if they need to message, they can.
Yeah.
Or people that have been, escaped it a long time ago, because I still have my struggles around trust, around, it's like I just won't have anybody get anything over on me. And I get really quite angry about that, and I know where it comes from. So I have to continue with therapy.
Yeah.
You know, I've told you before, I've spent a lot of money
Yeah.
on personal development. I've been coached by some amazing people. So I won't leave you hanging. If you've got a question and I don't know the answer, I will find out for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will get you that answer.
Yeah.
You know, if you need someone to hold your hand to make that first call, I'll support you.
Yeah.
Because my intention for this is I just don't want people staying because they don't know what to do, or they might not ever have even spoken to anyone that's dealt with anything.
And could you imagine them getting to an old age and thinking, I've wasted my fucking life?
And I've met people like that through Women's Aid.
Yeah.
I met a woman once, she used to come in and do talks with the girls. And that was that was why she did what she did. Because she put up with that marriage for 30 years. And like she said, I don't want these young girls, because they worry, they've got little kids, those kids are going to grow up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I don't want people to suffer. She was very well-to-do. They both worked at a bank, but he was the bank manager.
Oh, you've told me about it.
And she hid all of this from her kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And the violence got so scary one night, he was going to set her on fire.
Yeah.
She actually spoke to her. The house was so big that the children had no idea growing up.
Yeah, because
these violence used to take place at night. And that was her biggest message to these girls.
Yeah.
Get out and stay out.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Don't allow years to go by because of money.
Yeah.
Should I stay because of the
pretense
of the house?
Keeping up. Yeah.
You know, and all of that. She said, I live in a one-bedroom council flat and I've never been happier in my life.
Yeah, because it's all about how happy you are.
Yeah.
But I just want to really, really stress as well 2 things.
Yeah.
It's not always men.
No.
And women can be abusers as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So please, even if you're a male and you are suffering abuse, please get in touch.
Yes.
As well. Obviously, it works both ways, male or females. Yeah. And secondly, if you are a person listening to this thinking, that's me. That's how I behave when my other half goes out on a weekend. Yeah. I start going in a mood on a Monday. Yeah. Or I might say, I want sex, and then when they don't roll over and give it me, I'll then start going, well, who's getting it else then? You know, who else is getting it then if I'm not getting it?
And recognising yourself, if yourself have got issues.
Please recognise that is abuse. Yeah. And it is not okay. Yeah. Okay. So if you're listening to this thinking, that's me, you can also get help.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can break the cycle.
Yeah.
Yourself. Yeah. So this is really speaking just to cover everything, because I think we have covered it all. Yeah.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, no matter what the situation, if you do nothing, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to take action, whether you're a perpetrator watching this and you know you've got issues and you know that's me, I do that. Yeah. Then reach out, get help.
Yes, please.
Because it is breaking the cycle of one way or the other.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
You know?
And I think that me lying awake last night and thinking of everything I wanted to cover and thinking how important it is to both of us, because we've been in contact for a long time now about this episode. I think we have. And I think that obviously at Spin Justice on the Instagram, through the email address that's going to come up at the end, somehow get in touch with us and we will point you in the right direction, and I'll tag you in all the socials. Yeah. So I think we've covered it. Yeah. Good.
I think we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. This episode was sponsored by DNA Boxing School of Excellence and Southport Building and Property Services. If you have a topic that you want to discuss, get in touch at b31spinjustice@gmail.com or via Instagram @spinjustice.